Every story needs its hero. When evil rises from the darkness, there is a prophesied chosen one to come beat it back into submission and to bring balance. That chosen one is Anakin Skywalker. By the time of the Battle of Coruscant, there was scarcely a single galactic household that did not know the name Anakin. To the public, he was the hero with no fear, the savior of the Clone Wars, and the champion of the Republic. To the Jedi, he was an impetuous and an arrogant boy, but one with a track record that could justify all of it. As unconventional of the Jedi as he was, Anakin's power and his sheer talent with the lightsaber caused him to surpass even the members of the High Council. Unfortunately though, Anakin would never achieve his full potential, but during the Clone Wars his power creep was so fast that he'd proved time and time again why he deserved the rank of a Jedi Master. And this time, we aren't going to talk about his fall to ruin and remember his misdeeds. Rather, we are going to recount him as a hero and lay down some of the most overpowered feats of Anakin Skywalker in all of the lore. In the future, we will do the exact same for his counterpart, Lord Vader. But just as Luke did, we must treat them as separate characters and recount their deeds individually. So join us today as we talk about Anakin Skywalker's most insane moments in the lore. Welcome back to the archives, my friends, and let's begin. For better or for worse, Anakin has never been shy about what he can do. We have so many moments to choose from that it made selecting just a few of the most insane actually quite difficult. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on his feats performed with the Force itself, displaying his insane innate potential. Anakin has always preferred to solve issues with his lightsaber. Anakin is a man driven by his connection to his friends and his comrades, and anytime that they are in danger, we begin to actually see what he's capable of. There was one time during the Clone Wars during a mission where Rex and the boys were sprinting to enter a facility under heavy droid fire. In a moment of resolve and desperation alike, Anakin's eyes land on the smoking wreckage of an ATTE walker. His mind said, just do it, and he unleashed a massive force push. This sent the entirety of the ATTE skidding across the ground and slamming into the droid army. The kinetic force of the impact and the sheet of flame released was equivalent to that of a bomb detonating. And while we've seen some of the Jedi lift starfighters before using a great amount of concentration, an ATTE walker is a massive machine, and to perform a feat like this would have normally taken a team of Jedi working together with deep focus. But Anakin didn't even take the time to center himself here. He just unleashed his raw power in a wave. We wanted to really analyze the amount of telekinetic force that this would have taken to get a better idea of exactly how strong Anakin is. And the best way to measure this is using the Muntur Stones, since the lore actually gives us something to quantify it with. These 7 stones are sacred Jedi artifacts that are used in a powerful meditation ritual. Each of the stones weighs several metric tons, with the lightest of them being approximately 5 tons. It requires an intense amount of focus to be able to lift them. A Padawan so much as jolting even a single stone is seen as a mark of a great achievement. Experienced Jedi can lift 1 or 2. Yoda past the age of 700 even admitted to only being able to lift 5 of them at once. Only one Jedi Master in the recorded lore has ever reportedly lifted all 7. And although we have never been given the exact weight of an ATTE walker, we do know its dimensions and its cargo capacity. Others have used this information to calculate its weight for us. The general consensus is that the ATTE is somewhere over 100 tons in weight. This is well beyond the cumulative weight of all 7 Muntur Stones, showing that by the time of knighthood, Anakin had already surpassed many Jedi Masters. And maybe Anakin could have lifted all 7 if he really had attempted to. But Anakin taking on giant machines would also occur during the comic known as Skywalkers, specifically in Clone Wars Adventures Volume 2. The Confederacy had just rolled out a brand new type of aerial attack gunship, which they called the Conquer-class Dreadnought. It was extremely expensive and obviously quite large, proving itself to be a formidable bit of machinery. Nearly impenetrable battleships, the Dreadnoughts were roughly cylindrical in shape, sporting a flat top that served as both a landing pad as well as a troop transport area. 5 months after the Battle of Geonosis, it was the CIS who unveiled these toys at the Battle of Terra Sul. 36 of them descended to raise the planet's surface. With the Republic starfighter squadron swarmed, the Republic's ships were being taken out in droves. Obi-Wan managed to infiltrate one of the gunships and take control of it, and using its weaponry to blast down the other fighters. Anakin, though, meanwhile had crash-landed near a farming village and was fighting off the droid invaders in order to protect the innocents there. Kenobi soon contacted him, informing his apprentice that the Confederate fleet had launched 2 waves of missiles in order to decimate the planet's surface. Seeing the oncoming missiles, Anakin leapt from one of the gunships, using his lightsaber to tear apart 5 of the incoming projectiles at the same time. At this moment, he was moving so fast that he got clear of each one of them before the missiles detonated. He then landed on the platform of one of the dreadnoughts peacefully. Seeing the second wave of missiles rushing towards the village though, Anakin concentrated with all of his might and telekinetically took control of another one of the Conquer-class gunships. Anakin then used the Force to tilt it to the side, pulling it into the path of the oncoming missiles, destroying both of them. And all of this as a reminder, Anakin was doing this as a Jedi Padawan. Imagine how powerful he would have been if he was trained like the likes of Starkiller. But this isn't the last time that Anakin would prove his superiority over a piece of deadly machinery as a young Padawan. And neither of the previous two feats compare to the time that Anakin managed to resist the powers of an ancient Sith superweapon. During the Clone Wars, Dooku had uncovered the piece to a weapon known as the Dark Reaper. This machine had been built and used by the ancient Sith Lord Naga Sadow during the Great Hyperspace War of 5000 BBY. Thousands of years following the war, it found and was used by the Jedi Ulic Qel-Droma, who turned to a Sith during his fall and embrace of the Great Sith War. Its main function, though, was siphoning the life from one of many beings at once, and then subsequently using their power to fuel its turbo lasers. It was said that the Dark Reaper could harvest entire armies at times, killing them instantly and turning it into raw energy. With Dooku having uncovered most of the Reaper's pieces now, it was used on the Man Calamari, the Agamar, and the Bakar in order to collect their energy. Anakin witnessed this happen as he had traveled to Ren Var, the location of Ulic Qel-Droma's tomb. Long ago, when Ulic had embraced the light yet again, he had managed to destroy the machine and had scattered its pieces. And Anakin knew that there had to be a clue where he had hid it. And Anakin was correct. In fact, he got more than he bargained for when he communed with Ulic Qel-Droma's spirit, learning from the old Jedi, a technique that would allow him to temporarily shield himself from the Dark Reaper's effects. It involved growing in tune with the living force around him, pulling it all together to form a protective barrier. Although this power came with great risk. Miraculously though, Anakin learned this ability very quickly under the tutelage of Ulic Qel-Droma, and would rush off to face the Dark Reaper himself, ignoring all of Obi-Wan's warnings in the process. In the end, Anakin was successful in staving off the Force drain powers of the ancient Sith superweapon, and he actually managed to destroy it once and for all. This is a feat that cannot go unnoticed. This was not a piece of technology or a superweapon built in the modern era of Star Wars. This was a weapon of terror built by the ancient Sith. It's the stuff of legend and nightmare. And while Naga Sadow had made many mistakes in his day, he was by no means a weakling. In fact, he was the model of what it meant to be a Sith sorcerer. The spells that he possessed made entire stars go supernova, a power infused within his capital ship. And for him to have made the Dark Reaper meant that this was a weapon crafted from only the strongest and the most esoteric Sith knowledge. And Ulic Qel-Droma is an ancient Jedi of legendary strength who had experienced both sides of the Force before. Anakin learning how to use this technique and then successfully employing it within a span of days is simply unheard of. This technically makes Anakin immune to the power of Force drain, in fact, as Anakin can now use this ability long enough to resist the power and destroy the user. Anakin could use this to great effect against somebody like Darth Nihilus. But before we move on to the last feat that we want to discuss today, we wanted to give one more demonstration of Anakin's raw destructive abilities. During the Battle of Coruscant in 19 BBY, when Anakin and Obi-Wan managed to chase Dooku down to the place where Dooku and Sidious had been training in secret on Coruscant. This was the Le Merge building, which was an abandoned facility in the industrial district of Coruscant, a section of the city that was basically left abandoned. We think it's best to have the novel, though, Labyrinth of Evil describe the scene for itself here. In the ruined archive hall of Le Merge Power's plasma facility, Count Dooku waited for Kenobi and Skywalker to arrive. The room was enormous by any standard, 30 meters high, and 3 times that in circumference. More droids appeared now. To Dooku, this was nothing more than a game, Obi-Wan told himself. But if it was a demonstration of Force ability that Dooku wanted, then Anakin was still more than willing to provide it. Dooku! He howled with such force and wrath that the ceiling of the vast hall began to collapse. Dragging himself out from under plastisteel girders and chunks of ferrocrete, Dooku came shakily to his feet and gazed in astonished disbelief at the shambles of the control room. Had the containment dome been so weak that it had succumbed to flurries of ricocheting blaster bolts? Or had Skywalker's voice's rage actually called the ceiling down? Had Dooku not leapt forcefully at the last moment, he would have been buried, as the 2 Jedi were, in the expanse of rubble that covered the archive room. He was certain that they had survived, but if nothing else they were trapped now, which had been the intent from the start. But Skywalker, assuming that he had grown powerful enough to have collapsed the dome, The end result was simply further evidence that he would someday undo himself, wasn't it? Because admitting to any alternative explanation meant accepting that Skywalker was potentially a greater threat to the Sith than anyone had realized. Absolutely shocking and shaking Dooku, Anakin releases a force bellow with such rage that it brings down a massive 90-meter ceiling. Much like the time with the ATTE, this has been just a release of raw power rather than a focused technique. But unlike then, it was unlikely that Anakin even meant to do this. His rage simply built up and burst, and he allowed the Force to surge through him as he howled Dooku's name, inadvertently releasing a wave of power in the process. Only then did Dooku understand just how dangerous Skywalker was, and he began to question Sidious's choice of inducting him into the fold of the Sith. He was that powerful. It made Dooku question if he was beyond him. But now that we've reached the end, I think we all know what is by far Anakin's most impressive feat, and the likely reason that you selected today's holocron. It was his defining moment when he gave into the force of an environment not his own. It was the day that he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was the chosen one of prophetic legend. On a distant planet, he utterly dominated beings who were suggested to be all-powerful, beating them at their own game. That's right, Acolytes. Anakin Skywalker's most overpowered moment in all of Legends and canon is defeating Sebulba in the Bunta Eve pod race. As a dug from the planet of Malastare, Sebulba had an almost undefeated track record, but that was because he secretly rigged his pod racer with several illegal weapons. This included things like razor blades and even flamethrowers. On Malastare, pod racing was one of the biggest sports around. Sebulba had gained a reputation as a dangerous opponent. By all accounts, there should have been no way that a slave boy with a junk-built pod racer could have ever overcome him. But as a child, Anakin used his quick wits and talents in the Force to overcome all of Sebulba's nefarious cheating, and emerged victorious on Bunta Eve. That time on Mortis was pretty cool too. But anyway guys, these were some of Anakin's most OP moments throughout his time as a Jedi. A lot of the time we'd like to focus on his skill with the lightsaber, saying that the Force came secondary. But it's only here where we realize that Anakin didn't push his potential in the Force because others around him were simply too afraid of it. And Anakin was likely afraid of his potential as well. I know many of you have been looking forward to this video, and if anyone deserves to have all of their crazy moments counted, it would be Anakin Skywalker. As we said though, this does not include his days as Vader, as we plan on releasing a part 2 to this video, detailing Lord Vader's most insane feats. But tell us my friends, what of these do you think personally is the most impressive? And if there is a feat that you think we should have included here, be sure to let us know in the comments down below. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us in the archives here today, and may the Force be with you.